Hey folks, it is Sunday night, November 7th, 2016. I am doing a YouTube challenge to myself. Basically, I have to YouTube every day through the end of the year, but it can't be stupid, nonsensical, waste of your time stuff, okay? It's going to be stuff that's worth your while. Today, I'm going to talk about a couple things I've learned about podcasting since I started doing it about a week and a half ago. If you watch my last video, I took Cliff Ravenscraft's class, Podcast A to Z or Podcasting A to Z. He is the podcastanswerman.com, Cliff Ravenscraft. He is phenomenal. But let me talk about some things that I've learned on my own since I've started podcasting. Okay, my podcasting is a interview format, at least right now. I'm probably going to start doing a quasi format where it's interviews that are published on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and maybe even Saturday and Sunday. I do entrepreneurial rants, entrepreneurial chats, that sort of thing, kind of like I'm doing on YouTube, only on podcasting. And actually, if this is the first time you're tuning in, something I'm going to try to do, and if you've been watching my YouTube videos or if you've watched them in order, you know that one of the things I want to do when I podcast is to record the podcast for YouTube in a video format. And I have, in fact, this very iPad I'm using will be pointed at me when I'm doing a broadcast, and I'll have the sound from the podcast going straight into the iPad. And no, I won't be looking at the iPad directly and talking to the screen directly. It'll be off to the side a little bit, but you will be able to see me and hear me interview and hear my guest in a what was at one point, when you're watching it, it's not live anymore, but what once was a live recording. Or a live interview that was being put into a recording format for a podcast. That's going to be available on YouTube real soon. So I may record my entrepreneurial rants on the podcast, also record it for YouTube and put it on YouTube. Anyway, what have I learned? A few things that I just want to talk tonight very briefly about, a few things that I've learned since I've started a podcast a week and a half ago. One, getting guests to be interviewed on your show is not easy. Okay. Everyone's busy. I respect everyone's time. And when I approach to be a guest on my show, to do an interview, especially since I'm brand new at podcasting, they're really doing me a huge favor. I mean, I might be doing them a favor too, but I think they're offering me a lot more than I'm offering them. I'd like to think that it was more balanced than that, but let's face it, I have a brand new podcast. My listenership is very low. And until it's higher, I just am not bringing a lot of attention to them. But that will come in time. But getting podcast guests for an interview is not easy. Okay. You have to be willing to ask. You have to be willing to send an email or send a message through Facebook or send a text or whatever it is. You have to be willing to do that. And you have to be willing to accept no for an answer. You have to be willing to accept putting it on the schedule and bumping it and putting it on the schedule and bumping it. You have to be willing to deal with the trouble of getting a guest on a show in order to have a guest on a show, because not all your guests are going to be like, yeah, hey, let's do it. Boom, they're on. Okay. But you have to be willing to do it. You have to be it's like getting on the high dive for the first time at the pool. I don't know if you had the same experience I had, but I really badly wanted to jump off the high dive. But when I got up there, I got scared, and I think I came down from it a few times. And that summer, I really wanted the Guinness Book of World Records. I must have been 11 or 12 years old. I really wanted that big, fat Guinness Book of World Records. Every kid I knew was getting it that year and talking about all the weird things they were finding in it. And my mom says, you know what, if you go off that high dive, I will get you the Guinness Book of World Records. And I jumped off the high dive and I got the book. Okay. It was like probably a $6 book at the time. But you know what? When I was a kid, $6 was a lot. That was kind of like a $20 bill today. So you have to be willing to jump off to get the reward. Okay. You got to jump off the high dive. You've got to send an email. You've got to be willing. I was willing to do a belly flop or to hit the water hard or to have an unpleasant experience in order to get the Guinness Book of World Records. Well, I want to have guests on my show. Okay. I've got to be willing to have an unpleasant moment where I'm told no, or where I'm told, I mean, somebody might flat out tell me at some point, you know what, you're just too new. I can't make time for something that's as new as you. Fortunately, that hasn't happened yet. And I've asked 6 or 7 people so far to be on my show, and not one person has kind of hit me with anything like that in a negative way. Okay. So that's the first thing. Be willing to ask for people to be on your show. Be willing to accept no for an answer. Be willing to deal with having to reschedule and reschedule and reschedule. All that being said, I haven't had one person say no yet. I have one person hasn't responded yet. That's fine. He travels a lot. We'll see if he responds. I have a feeling he'll respond positively, but he's kind of a high demand person, so he may not. But everyone else, 6 or 7 people now, has been like immediate yeses. So I've been very fortunate, and I'm extremely thankful to the people who I've asked to be on my program, that they are willing to make time to be on my program. It's just been fabulous. So what's the second thing? Guests are really willing to be on your show. I mean, they're really going to be willing. Now, if you go straight to asking A-listers, now some of the people that I've talked to, I wouldn't want to say that they aren't A-listers, but they're not Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay. I haven't asked anybody that is on the level of Gary Vaynerchuk or Tim Ferriss. Okay. I just haven't. Seth Godin. Okay. I have not asked anybody that is on their level to be on my show, and I'm not going to right now. I wouldn't do that probably for a good amount of time, at least 6 months or 4 or 6 months. And I felt like, you know what, my listenership is really good, and it's time to really, stick a stake in the ground and make a stand. And I may do that at some point once I kind of get my voice on podcasting and figure out what my flow is going to be, and see how people respond, and look at my list grow and that sort of a thing. But I think I've asked 7 or 8 people so far. I'm waiting on one response. Everyone else has been immediate. I'd love to be on your program. Okay. So you can't be scared to ask. Okay. A couple of the people that I've asked to be on the show, I was a little hesitant to ask. I kind of felt like, what if they reject? What if they say no, just outright no? Oh, well, look, it's going to hurt for a moment. It's going to suck, but you know what? You have to ask. You can't get to a yes without the question first, right? You can't get the sale if you don't ask for the sale. The people that I have asked to be on my show have been so gracious and so giving to me in their time and their energy to be on my show. And why? Because I've asked them to be on my show. Okay. What else have I learned since I started podcast? You know what? That's probably where I'm going to start it. Those 2 things. 1, be willing to get rejected. Be willing to deal with the reschedule. I mean, it's going to happen. Okay. But don't be afraid to ask, because you'll get your yeses. And actually, if you have an experience like me, you might get a lot of yeses. You might get people that are like, wow, I'd love to be on your show. That's the experience that I've had. Everyone I've asked has been like, oh, wow, I would love to be on your show. And I mean, I have a very small subscriber list. I have, I think I'm over 100 downloads, but I don't think I'm over 200 downloads yet. And it's been on for about a week and a half. Okay. I have 3 episodes on there. 2 of them are real episodes, and one of them is just a little welcome message. So, and people have been overwhelmingly positive and just like, boom, I'm on your show. Tell me when. And I do a little advertising card. I have an artist that has created a logo for me, a kind of a format for an advertising card that I can put on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And I give that to my guests, and they can use it on their social media. And you know what they do? And that's good for them, and that's good for me. And I mean, it's fabulous. So, that's really what I wanted to tell you about tonight. I wanted to keep this kind of under 10 minutes, and I see we're fast approaching 10 minutes. So I'm going to end it with that. 2 valuable pieces of information if you're wanting to do an interview podcast. Just ask the question. Ask the question and get ready for some yeses. And with that, I'm going to tune out. Stay productive, my friends. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great night.